kind of this whole hero's journey we have to go on. It's like the journey through desert, the journey of Moses, through the desert. And it took a whole generation, like 40 years, to clear out all of the memories of the slavery, right? So think about the allegory of slavery.
It took a whole generation to get to the promised land.
Yeah, well, what is that? What is the promised land?
Right.
What's in the heart is the promised land. So how do we peel away a whole generation of conditioned learning? And that's exactly what the story is implying, is that they had to spend 40 years in a desert, the desert of the psyche, to clear out all that crap that was taught to them, and they had to start from a clean slate to get into the promised land. So that's the journey we're all on.
Our potential, it's exponential.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another one. I am here with my friend Neil. Neil, welcome.
Yay, Jack. Thanks again, man.
Heck yeah. Thank you for coming back.
I love it. I love talking to you, bro.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
man.
it's really great.
Yeah, we have such great conversations, and our last conversation was amazing. So thanks for coming back and sharing.
Yeah. I'm inspired because I've never done like anything like this before. So it's kind of new. But I like the way it feels, so I'm doing it again.
I love it, man. Yeah, we follow our hearts, don't we?
Yeah, and also I'm looking for another vehicle to kind of share that besides social media, I guess.
Yeah, cool. I like this long form content approach where it's like we can go deep into things.
Yeah, I mean, satsang is where we talked about a lot about what that means and how it's been around for thousands of years and how people have these dialogues in Greek philosophy, and the ancient Siddha yoga folks, in India have always had these little meetings and gatherings for spiritual upliftment. So I think in our modern civilization it's been somewhat lost, but lost yet nothing's really lost.
That's it. We keep it alive here.
Yeah, we're reigniting.
Nothing's ever lost. Exactly. Talk about that, Neil.
Yeah, we started talking about that the other day. We had a little preview together about that.
Yeah.
But let's start with that little opening.
Cool idea.
So I just wanted to invite all my friends and family and all my Ek brothers and sisters around the world who are tuning in. Jack and I are attempting to do our own little unique satsang. And, satsang is like a gathering of like-minded people who have a common idea in mind, like spiritual unfoldment, upliftment, and seeking truth or expressing your truth.
Yeah, so we want to invite you guys to join with us, and you want to do a little...
We're going to do a little chant, a little U chant. The U, H-U, is a very ancient prayer. In fact, when we breathe with our mouth open on the out-breath, it sounds like you. So it's actually this breath of life is with us from day one to the last day of our life, this breath, which is the spirit of life, the spirit of the universe, so to speak, and it's with us all the time, but we tend to overlook it because it's so simple. It's right so close to us. We oversee it. We think it's out there somewhere. So
the spirit, the breath.
The breath of life. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
So I think just to kind of set the tone for everybody, we could all do this together for those out there who are listening. We're just going to take a minute just to close our eyes and just tune in and sing this U. You can do it out loud or quietly. So Barak Bashad is the way we usually end these U-chant prayers, because Barak Bashad means may the blessings be. And what that means is like an undirected prayer. We're not trying to direct anything. It's unconditional. And it's like thy will be done idea.
Totally.
Like not trying to make anything happen. It's like getting our agenda completely out of the way, our own personal ego-driven agenda.
Getting our own agenda out of the way.
Yeah, we started talking about that.
Just being, yeah, right, and just becoming a channel, right?
Yeah.
And like just surrendering to the message.
Yeah, whatever's coming through. Like we were talking about this, how we are the living truth. We talked about truth and how in our first podcast we were discussing truth and how all the philosophers are debating truth all the time. So after like reviewing that episode 5 that we did, I was thinking, okay, what's this all about? And truth, like, so deep down, I don't think truth is out there somewhere or anything. It's all inside. And all the great masters and prophets and saints and teachers throughout history have basically alluded to the same thing, that the truth is within and that we are this living truth ourselves. So what's that mean? And so I want to talk more about that. And I took some notes this time. The last time we just improvised. I just like no notes. I was like just ask and shoot away. It was like the Wild West.
It's great, man. Yeah, what do you got? Yeah, let's get into them.
Well, I suppose we can start with the early childhood idea. Like you know, from the book I talked about this in like the first 6 years of our life. How we're so conditioned, like our whole cortex is just a clear slate, and that everything that's taught to us from our parents, our teachers, our friends, it gets recorded like grooves of a vinyl record, you know. Yeah. And so once those are ingrained in our neural pathways, you know, that it's very difficult to change, and that becomes like the stage that. Or the template that kind of runs our life in some ways.
Big time.
And so I want to talk about that and how that relates to freedom. Because if we're taught to do things, like culturally taught about different belief systems, religion, philosophy, how to behave, and then what not to do, how not to behave.
Yeah.
And so in Jungian psychology, they talk about this quite a bit, about how we will kind of stuff our feelings about what we want to do, but if our parents or others are saying, no, you can't do that, you'll never be a this, or you'll never be a musician, or you'll never make any money doing that, or and it's like, okay, so we stuff and say, oh, I'm going to shove that away in a basement. And I know in a lot of the 12-step programs out there in rehabs, it's all about clearing out the closet, clearing out the basement, and these different steps of clearing out all this stuff that we've been hiding away, which is in the shadows, so to speak. So all of these issues about ourself, whether it's blame or shame or guilt or whatever, right? That we kind of stuff away and we don't want to look at it, either because it's too painful to look at or because we were told that it's not worth, you know, pursuing, like maybe a dream, you know.
Maybe our parents didn't, you know, cope with them properly or whatever. Yeah, that's so interesting, man. Yeah, our shadow.
Right. So, for example, I know I heard the story just a few days ago about a guy told about a son who was listening to like punk rock music. So this guy grew up on the 70s rock and roll music. And of course, his parents, who grew up on like Frank Sinatra and some older, they thought the rock music of the 70s was horrible. Like, oh, what are you listening to that junk for, right? And then me, I'm looking at my kid who's listening to some teeny bopper music. It's like, oh, I don't like that. And so the question, or punk. So the question I would ask, you know, my kid is like, do you really like? Does that make you happy?
Right.
And so, yeah, I like that. It makes me happy. Okay.
Yeah, that's a
doesn't mean it makes me happy. So like each generation has their like happy quotient.
Yeah.
Like what makes you happy?
It's interesting. Yeah, no, and there are cycles, right? And it's different. And if it makes them happy, then so be it. You know what I mean? Like to you, it's like not interesting.
Doesn't work for me, but it works for them. So every generation has like a different like take, because they're learning different things from their parents and their classmates and colleagues. And so every generation is learning whole new set of barriers and boundaries and values.
It's a different time period. Completely.
Everything's different politically, socioeconomically. It's all different. So, yeah.
And they talk about how different cycles are like, different generations are like softer than others, or like other ones are more, you know, it's just really interesting. And it's a cycle every 80 years. Like
it could be. It's really, I mean, imagine that going on for thousands of years. It's like so to me, it's like an evolution.
It's an evolution.
It's like every generation is going to bring in a different element of awareness, different inventions, different artistic experiences, musical experiences and so forth.
Right.
So yeah. So
Yeah, man. But let's we go deep. But let's bring it. I want to bring it back to conditioning. Like, what is that? Yeah, like because we got into all that.
well, sociology talks about this a lot. Like there's all kinds of theories of social conditioning and self-fulfilled prophecy. So, for example, if a group of people are told that they're bad, like they behave bad, they'll tend to fulfill that prophecy and actually behave badly.
That's right.
So if they're taught that you're bad or the way you behave is not acceptable,
it perpetuates that behavior.
right? So that's a theory in sociology, and so
I mean, I could see that. Like that's why inmates end up back in prison so often. More than not, because it's like it's who they are. It's an identity thing.
That's also shadow work, because if you're not really clearing out the basement and doing your own shadow work, then all these, whatever's coloring your filters or whatever is clouding your lens, looking out to life, will obscure the way you kind of receive your own internal wisdom and truth. And so unless you really go in and contemplate and do some deep introspective work, psychotherapy work or what have you, then you'll always be kind of governed by all these conditioned, the things we are taught. Yeah. And so we have to unlearn everything in some way. It's not an easy thing, except what I've done is visualization to do that. So, for example, I would visualize my mind like a large vinyl record, right? And I would see the grooves of old patterns. And these are patterns that I learned growing up, And then I would try to see it in my mind's eye and then fill those grooves with like golden light. And just see it bathe, and just in my mind's eye, and I might do it once, twice, 10 times, whatever, and then eventually you'll see things changing in your dream state, because a lot of the stuff that's buried in the unconscious, which is in the shadows, will start popping up in the dream state and it'll start percolating. And so your dream life, your dream state, if you start paying attention to that, what's in the unconscious will start percolating. It's like, there's some clues about what's being burned off, what's being resolved, maybe relationship issues, maybe you're running from something, maybe you feel insecure about something. Like one of the most common dreams is you're running from a stalker kind of thing. Yeah. What are we running from? Something about ourself, something that's stalking us within, right? Wow. So we keep running from that. Eventually you may face that.
Dude, that's so interesting, because all those things you mentioned earlier, like the shadow work, the anxiety, the shame, the guilt, all that stuff, that's our creation.
Well,
we
even though we're taught it, it's like there's an agreement to go through that. And so why do we have this agreement? Why do we agree to go through this conditioning? Yeah, because it's like the butterfly, right? It's like the moth building its own cocoon, right? Like without the struggle, you wouldn't know anything. You wouldn't realize anything about your true self, your true heart-centered identity, your authentic soul self, your higher self, your spiritual spark. And so the struggle is really implicit. The birthing process is implicit towards what I would call self-realization or self-actualization. And so without the struggle, you wouldn't realize anything. That's so we have to have it. So it's necessary, unfortunately, because there's a lot of pain in the struggle. At least, although pain could also be seen as an illusion, where suffering is what we do to ourselves. Like we allow ourselves to suffer through it, but we don't have to. We can actually change that script and actually let it pass through us, and not see ourselves as a victim, but as the hero in our own journey, in our own struggle.
The stories we tell ourselves. So interesting, yeah.
So we all of us.
We could turn it into lessons and like really, moments in time that,
We talked about that last time. Yeah, how everything is a lesson and a teaching experience, rather than something that just happens randomly out of the chaos in the universe. So I guess the big question a lot of people have, well, is it all random? Or is there some organized energy, quantum organized in the universe, right?
Tell people about that. What's the answer?
Well, each of us has to really contemplate and find our own inner truth, right? There's no real answers. Like you have to. The answer is within. Yeah, it is, and it's not really a intelligible, written down answer necessarily. It's like you have to recognize your own inner shadows, your own inner faults, insecurities, and then eventually transcend that. So we have to transcend our own mind, really. Like we need the mind, we need the emotional body, we need the physical body. It's all part of our classroom of life experience. But I think we have to learn how to transcend that somehow. So the spiritual exercises that are taught in various mystery schools, one of them, Eckankar, which you know I'm very much involved in that one for a long time, is to kind of settle the mind down and really transcend it, like rise above it, try to get to the soul level of consciousness, which is where there is really no thinking anymore. So there's no thoughts. We're trying to get beyond thoughts. We're not tuning into our thoughts. But
so tell us for someone who's listening, like, because that was a beautiful example you gave with the, the golden light along the grooves, washing that all away with visualization. Like, what is something someone could do to get rid of, get beyond the thoughts and transcend the mind?
Well, it's not something that happens immediately necessarily. I mean, it could. Sometimes breakthroughs in consciousness could be a very swift thing. Like in Zen Buddhism, the master will do something to the student, like something radical, just to get a realization, and so to get them to like just wake up, like a whack on the side of the head phenomena, kind of thing.
It is about breaking the patterns,
right?
And I think with that pain, that's the pain. A lot of that, like when you go through it in your own personal journey.
I think the pain is proportionate to the amount of attachment we have.
Interesting.
So that's where Buddhism and clinging as the source of all suffering comes in. It's like the more attached we are to our past or to our own story or to anything, any emotional thing, anything, then that will be a source of pain. That's
a Buddhist thing for sure.
Yeah. So I believe in detachment as a virtue, and practicing the virtues to answer your question about how do we achieve this. And from what I've learned over the years is we have to practice the virtues. We have to learn how to be patient. This is like the martial arts of the mind kind of idea. And so you have to practice humility, detachment, forgiveness.
Man, and these are the skills that really were what life's all about, That's what it's what the Stoics talked about, all these things, really not giving in when it feels like you want to, you live by the virtues. Yeah, you are the way.
Well, it's very easy to give in to temptation no matter what it is, because we're human, and it's
big time, yeah.
We have to learn to discriminate, like we were talking about earlier. How do we be more picky? How do we be more discriminating with our choices? And it's a maturity issue. We have to, as we grow up, we mature and we try to choose more wisely.
Right. We don't pig out on sweets or whatever. Try our best. Yeah, we're learning.
There's the consequences of that behavior. If we're lusting for a lot of food, or if we're lusting for anything, for power over others, that eventually we get egg in our face and it backfires. Sooner or later, the consequences of those actions come back at us, and they really keep us in a type of mental slavery.
That's right.
And so what are we really trying to achieve is a type of liberation of spirit, a liberation of ourself, our higher self, from being encumbered in the mind, in the mind worlds. And this is the hardest test we will meet, because in the mind worlds it gets very, very subtle and insidious. And from what I've learned, is probably that this most subtle trap is doubt. Once you start doubting anything, it's the mind coming in to trap you, or in Eck they call it the cow. So the negative force, whatever, but the mind traps, And
mind traps.
Yeah, these traps are all within us.
Like doubt.
Yeah, anything that comes up, like, oh, what about this? The questions, like, and then you're stuck in the mental plane again of your own consciousness.
And
you're not really transcending the mind. And so how do you transcend that? Is by taking 10, 20 minutes or more a day into contemplation, chanting, breathing, meditating, or gardening, or doing what you love, and kind of getting out of the mental chatter, the rumblings and the ramblings and all that.
Like being a kid. Remember being a kid and like riding your bike and stuff, and you weren't thinking about anything. Maybe you just were a kid, but like, you know what I mean? You really... It transcended the mind. It
was very much like that. And we talked about that last time, how to become like a child is to become like, enter the kingdom of heaven, is to really become like the child again. That the fantasy play is very important. So visualization, like the golden light, it's really kind of fantasizing that, you're visualizing it. And by allowing yourself to do that, we're actually using perhaps the most powerful faculty of soul, which is the creative imagination. And so how do we create what we want? How do we create our own reality without all the consequences, the painful consequences that most of us often get ourselves trapped in. The drama, the relationships, all the stuff that pulls us down, to a level of, not a happy place, let's put it that way. And we have to dig ourselves out of that sometimes,
Big time, man. Yeah. And that's what self-development is, learning from those things and maturing and, it's a journey, man.
It's a maturation process, and the philosophers had all kinds of fancy words for that. But it's a maturing. It's a maturing in spirit. It's letting your inner self shine more, and not be so tempted by every little thing that comes our way, and trying to be more, having more pause before we choose, being less reactive to things.
Totally.
And
thinking deeper.
Yeah, like for example, my wife would often ask me a question like, "Hey, do you want to go out for dinner?" It's like, instead of saying, "Yeah, let's go," I'll say, "Well, let me think about that." I'll always say, "Let me think about that," before I choose right away. It's like, and so and then I'll come back later. Yeah, okay, I'll go. No, I don't want to go there. I want to go someplace else. So, like taking the time to really letting things settle in your mind a little bit, or in your consciousness, before you just react and respond. Yeah. So responding with more intelligence, maybe responding with more maturity, because I think it's easy to respond reactively, and that's the shadowy part of our mind, which is triggered by things. So we easily get triggered by people. Like oftentimes we'll meet somebody, for some reason we get a really bad feeling, like a yucky, weird vibe from that person. Why are we being triggered? Like, what are they mirroring back to me? So rather than look at them, I feel like I have to, why am I feeling this way?
That's mature, by the way, guys. That's it. Because you're right. Like that happened to me just recently. It was like blaring in my face. And I had the same thought. It's like super reflection. Like, what is it? Maybe anything people get upset about in people, it really is something that you see in yourself, right? What do you think about that?
Ultimately, yeah, I think because in all the literature I've been looking at, as far as shadow work and soul retrieval, it's always about looking at ourselves, no matter what, whatever experience that we find ourselves in, with people, places, things, jobs. It's all about how is this a reflection of me? Like, why am I going through this, rather than like, what can I learn from this?
Big time.
Rather than, why is this happening to me? So what do I have to learn from this about myself? Like, how is this reflecting my own consciousness back to me? And so our whole world, our whole experience out here becomes like this waking dream, of mirrors just sending feedback back to each of us about how to behave better, how to be better, how to feel the love that's out there, and filter out all the garbage, because there's a lot of garbage.
Big time.
Yeah.
But a waking dream, that's so funny. To use our creative faculties of imagination.
Well, absolutely.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So the creative imagination is a topic talked a lot in different spiritual circles, and how we can use that as a tool and as a skill to literally mold our reality. Wow. And we do it as kids all the time without even realizing. It's just natural for the child brain, 5, 6, 7 years old, to fantasy play, to imagine things. And then we forget how to do that because, like we talked about last time, we get conditioned and we have to do our math and our homework, and we forget about the fantasy play. We got to focus on driving and doing things, doing work, shoveling snow, or whatever we have to do.
And our whole life, and our whole life, by the way, not just the kids, like your whole life, people take this into their whole entire lives.
Right. Well,
conditioning.
It's very easy to get wrapped up in ourselves. That's the outer self, or the ego, or the little self.
Yeah.
It's the temporary character that we've actually created for our benefit. So our personality is just a temporary character that somehow we manifested for a reason, for our own spiritual benefit.
For our own spiritual benefit.
Right, like Shakespeare said this, we are all, life is a play of soul, we all have our hour upon the stage.
Yeah.
And so each of us is like the editor, director, and producer of our own life script.
Big time.
And, I know it sounds a little far out, but...
Neil, that's so interesting for our own souls.
But it really is taking full responsibility for everything in your reality, rather than saying it happened to me or somebody else's fault. So it's never finding fault with anything outside of ourselves at all. It's taking total responsibility for what you're experiencing. So everything we experience is our creation somehow.
Yeah, we are creators.
That's what Ankar means, worker, and Ik is an ancient Sikh word from the 1500s, and then it became Ek Ankar, which means co-worker. So yeah, we're all co-workers with this one, co-workers with life, and learning how to direct our own consciousness, our own imagination to create and mold the life, towards a better realization, towards a higher realization. But that's where service comes in.
I was just about to say, talk to me about service.
Right. So, I know growing up, I never liked the word service too much because I was working in the hotel dining rooms, on bussing tables, and it wasn't a lot of fun, but, it was a passage that we all have to go through,
the term service, right.
Yeah, working at restaurants, working in any service industry. So then when I started studying the concept of service to others, it was like it already had that negative quality to it. So I had to kind of unlearn that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, what does it really mean? And so then I had the realization that service should be easy. Like real service to others should come natural and easy. Like it should be something you love.
Well, it should be something you love.
Right.
And it's getting beyond outside of ourselves, right? Like I love gardening, for example, or my family or whoever. Like it doesn't matter about me. It's about, everyone else, right? That's like service, I think.
Well, if you're doing something you really like to do, like the music analogy I gave earlier, do you like that music? Yeah. Like, does it make you happy? Yeah. So it's the same concept. Does gardening make you happy?
Yeah.
Do you love doing it? And then so finding what you truly love is a journey by itself. And it takes an amazing amount of self-honesty to admit to yourself what is it that I really like to do, because we're taught so many other things that we should be doing, like go out and get a job and make a 9 to 5, and punch your card in and make all the money and build a house and this and that.
And don't think about what do you like to do, but
right. Like we're not really taught that. We're taught we have to survive, and survival is important too. We have to do whatever we have to.
But that's that's a given, right, Neil? Right? Let's talk about. Would you talk about self-actualization at all? And
Well, Abraham Maslow in the psychology circles talked about that as the peak of the pyramid, right? But the bottom of the pyramid is survival, like eating and
right,
food,
basics,
right? And so there's a part of our psyche that is very centered on survival, being fed, and so we have to unlearn that too, even though we have to keep eating, but we don't want to get over-identified with that. So we have to learn to compartmentalize all these survival needs we have, like warmth and shelter and food. But there's more to life than just that. And then we have emotional survival. So all the emotions come up, and then there's the mind and intellectual. And so it just is all these different layers, kind of this whole hero's journey we have to go on. It's like the journey through desert, the journey of Moses, through the desert. And it took a whole generation, like 40 years, to clear out all of the memories of the slavery, right? So think about the allegory of slavery.
It took a whole generation to get to the promised land.
Yeah, well, what is that? What is the promised land?
Right.
What's in the heart is the promised land. So how do we peel away a whole generation of conditioned learning? And that's exactly what the story is implying, is that they had to spend 40 years in a desert, the desert of the psyche, to clear out all that crap that was taught to them, and they had to start from a clean slate to get into the promised land. So that's the journey we're all on.
Wow, it's a metaphor for the journey we're all on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you look at the map, what they're talking about, it's right there, right? How'd it take 40 years to go there? I remember always thinking that as a kid, like, what? They just went right there. It was because they weren't ready for the promised land, right?
Right. What that means, what that really means.
Yeah.
What's the allegory of the promised land? It's more like a deeper thing inside of us, self-realization, self-actualization, or we call it the Ekshar consciousness in the Ekankar circles. And I wanted to read a little piece from the Shariat Ki Sugmad, which is a book. I'll just hold it up real quick. And this is they consider this a very sacred book because the Shariat they call it the living word. And we are the living word, like we are the Shariat ourselves. We are the living truth. And sometimes it comes out where you can transcribe that, but ultimately it's beyond the mind, the true.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about feeling the connection to the whole universe and to spirit and to life, and feeling the love for all of life, this living Shariat. But I do want to read a passage and see where that takes us, because we can go around and around and around and talk about this all day. Right?
Yeah, we can.
So there's a word in here called sugmad, and sugmad is just a very ancient word for God. And so it says, this is on page 6, by the way, Shariat Q Sugmad, book 2. Those who have had the realization of soul know that the sugmad is, period. And assuredly then, that which exists as it is beyond all understanding. But whoever knows this realizes that the realization of it is not an understanding alone. It is understood only when the chela, which is the student, when the chela allows it to swallow him and digest him. When the chela lets himself surrender to it accepts him as a divine channel to be used in all the worlds of the universe. Wow. That was pretty powerful.
Super powerful.
Yeah, so what is that all about? I mean, again, how do you talk about that? It's like you have to digest it and allow it to digest you. It's like totally give into it, like surrender to it, let it take over you. And it sounds like you're giving up something, but you're not. You're really giving up the mind. You're giving up all of the traps. You're surrendering all the garbage, all your grief, all the problems. I'm giving it all up, and I'm just going to be a vehicle, this open pipe, this channel for what I value, for love, for the things I love to do, what makes me happy. Yeah. Right?
Wow, and when you experience that, that's where it's at. Like you said, once you experience it, there's no denying it. Like you said, and I think a lot of people here could relate to that. Yeah.
Well, when you, like I said last time, you feel it, you feel it.
Yeah.
But again, there's no words don't come close to describing it, because it's beyond the mental speech. It's like you experience this experience of being connected to the universe. It's kind of like cosmic consciousness, nirvana. I mean, there's all these different words that are attempting to describe this experience. And deep down, I think it's the experience we all want and we all need, but we don't know how to get it. And we get very stuck by the mind traps, keep us very trapped in the world of time and space. I mean, that's all we know mostly. We get very tunnel vision about it.
You and I mean, think about it. Yeah, like I fall victim to these mind traps in traffic or whatever.
All the time.
We need these reminders, beautiful reminders. What is that called again? The name of that? The way?
It's called the Shariat Ki Sugma.
The Shariat.
Yeah, it's written by Paul Twitchell right back in late 60s. Wow. And there's a few other things I highlighted here.
By Paul Twitchell?
Right.
Very cool.
And you can find this online. And this is on page 37. The acquiring of a new point of view in the Chila's dealings with life and the world is called the Ekshar, by those who are followers of Ek. The Ekshar can be said to be similar to the enlightenment known to religions, except that it contains both the light and sound. So this light and sound is very important, by the way.
With the enlightenment with light and sound.
Right. The Ekshar is not a conclusion reached by reasoning. Anyone who has experienced it is always at a loss to explain it coherently or logically.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Well, it's like being in love, How do you explain how it feels like to be in love? Like the chemistry is there, like you're really in love, and it's like, you just can't explain it. It's just, you'd feel it, Ekshar is concerned with the universal life, and at the same time with the experiencer's aspect of survival and eternity. And Ekshar comes upon the Chila in many ways. It may come abruptly in a momentary experience, yet on the other hand, it may come gradually. And the experiencer may stay in it for hours, maybe days. So,
it's a state.
Talking about
it's a state of being.
Yeah, it's really transcending the mind worlds, the mental apparatus that we have. So the general idea is that we are more than just the mind, body, and emotions. We're a soul, this eternal spark of God.
So talk about that, because that feels true to me. that our soul goes on beyond this. Like, there's no proof in all this stuff, right? Like, but
Sort of.
it's sure.
There's a lot of circumstantial evidence from near-death experience. Look, people have had near-death
Exactly.
experiences way before they couldn't even bring people back. I mean, think about maybe centuries ago, people fell, they went unconscious, and they became conscious again. Well, what happened during that period of unconsciousness? And they came back, it's like, whoa, I saw God.
Yeah. And like you're saying, like, I don't know, just living in your dreams and all of these really, really far out things that we still don't understand. Like, you're right. There is, like, who knows about proof or any of that. But the point is, what do you think about our soul living beyond this lifetime? Reincarnation.
Oh, absolutely. We hit upon that last time, that a soul's
We
eternal.
did.
In fact, I want there to be one more thing about soul.
Perfect.
And this is actually a quote that I put in my book, and it's all the way in the back. And it was talked at a seminar in 1982 by a guy from Africa. His name was Benjamin Aneji from Nigeria. And he goes, quote, "There is only one soul, and that is the soul of the Sugmad, or the soul of God," right? And the highest thing you could do to a person is to think of them as soul. The highest thing is to think of some soul. So I think that what he's trying to say is whoever you look at, to see them as soul.
It's so powerful. Guys, I would so suggest doing this.
Yeah, and
we
it says,
talked about this.
Yeah, and then it's the highest thing you can do is to think of them as soul, and think about the good things in them, because by doing so, you lift them up and you lift yourself up. And you can regard the soul of the Sugmad as a mirror, and imagine this mirror breaking into fragments, into fine stardust, and descending into the abyss of matter. Soul becomes individualized as you and me, and becomes a viewpoint through which Sugmad views the universe in infinite ways. And the basic quality of soul is consciousness. Then you have other faculties like beingness, knowingness, imagination, and immortality. So it goes on and on and on. So there's a lot to be said there. The guy was amazing.
That's
and
beautiful.
I know my friends in Africa will be like going crazy right now.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, he's from Nigeria.
Yeah.
So beautiful, man. A mirror to break into stardust.
Well, what that says to me is that we are each this microcosm of the macrocosm. And so what is that? Like, imagine what a hologram is. And that if each fragment, each stardust, kind of like the drop in the ocean, like Rumi would say, we're each the ocean within the drop, So we are that ocean within the drop. Each of us is this holographic universe within. And so in a way, once we transcend time and space as soul, then we are infinite. We are unlimited in that holographic design of who we are. If God is experiencing reality through each of us, and it's not outside of us. We are it. It is us. So we are this living Sharia. We are the living truth. It's not out there somewhere or in a book. It's like we are it. And we have to close our eyes and get still enough and be still. And they all saying, be still and know that I am God, kind of thing. And so, not necessarily easy to be still in our world of distractions with all the things around us. And I often imagine the vision of a hurricane, and me trying to be like the eye of a hurricane, which is very calm and quiet, with all the tumult and all the splinters swirling around us. And it's very easy to get kind of caught up in that. And
swept in the eye wall.
Very much. And then the wet leaves will sticks to you, like sticky, like karma. And then, so if you don't maintain your ground, your mindful center, and stay calm and not react, and stay in that soul consciousness, then sure, we'll be sucked into it like a mind trap. We'll pulled into the drama and create more karma and create more consequences that eventually come back at us to teach us, okay, I'm not going to keep doing that thing again and again because I keep getting mud on my face or egg on my face or scraped up. It's like, it doesn't feel good. And so through the pains of life and the tensions of living, where it's all designed, we're teaching ourselves, actually. We're trying to teach ourselves how to be more calm in that eye of the hurricane, so to speak. And that's the test where we're all here to meet. And it is the martial arts of the mind. We're trying to master. We're all trying to be masters of our own reality, and not just trying. We're doing it all the time. But for some of us, maybe it's slower. We're all on a different schedule. And I guess God is, you can say, or the spirit of the universe, it's unconditional energy, and it doesn't really care.
It's
It's no personal, real personal,
There's no like
it's impersonal.
status or competition. Exactly.
Right. It's an impersonal force. And it's, it's in eternity, there is no time or space. So it's like, whenever you're ready, you're ready. It's like, whenever you're ready, whenever you had enough pain and you want to kind of get off the wheel of karma and everything, you can start like looking within and closing your eyes and trying to take some time to contemplate and recognize that you are much more than just this reactive ball of emotions and mental chatter.
We all know it. We all know it. Like, if you actually think about it, like, for a second, in stillness, man. Stillness.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, stop and do nothing. And what do you mean? Because but actually in doing nothing, you're doing something.
Yes. Yeah.
And probably something more valuable than anything else. It's like it's like taking a retreat and being still. And
why do people spend tens of thousands of dollars on these retreats just to go back home?
Right, because they think they got to find it out there somewhere. But unless you practice it every day, as just like brushing your teeth and make a habit of it, it'll just be something fleeting. You really won't be able to. You may touch it, through an ayahuasca experience or through an ashram experience or whatever. You got to travel the world and climb the mountains and have some crazy experience, sure. But when you come back home, where are you? Did it teach you anything? Or maybe it did. Maybe people need to do more of that, more go out and break the mold and get out of the 9 to 5 punching your card and the rat race and try to kind of get a different view of the world and visit different cultures and different vantage points and learn that way. There's all kinds of ways of going about it, and there's no limit. So whatever you're driven to, whatever makes you happy, go for it.
Yeah, man. Martial arts of the mind with Neil Primack today, ladies and gentlemen. This is awesome, Neil.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we've talked about a lot of things already.
Yeah, where are we at?
I took a few notes before I came, so this time. So this whole idea of service always kind of puzzled me because I always felt a little like reticent about a little like not wanting to always give myself so much because I did so much of that as a kid working, always working. It's like, when do I get a break?
When can I help me for a sec?
Yeah, because we all need to take care of ourselves too, right? Like inwardly, we need to heal inwardly. So again, I think finding the things that you value, what's important to you, finding your strengths, and then your passion. So where your values and your strengths and talents meet is really where you want what you want to look for. And then once you find that space, that sacred space, then you can really mold and create your own masterpiece of life, like your own painting, your own life journey.
When your own innate skills and strengths meet your passions and love.
Right. So that's not an easy task. I mean, it wasn't meant to be easy because without the challenge, without this going through the birth canal of life or the desert of the psyche, you would never know anything without the struggle, because we have to emerge out of that struggle and then wake up and open our eyes and see the light, kind of thing.
Yeah. So we have to get through a bunch of crappy paintings before we make the masterpiece.
Absolutely. That's right. That's right. It had 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah.
Get in your 10th of practice. And
I think I read a book I'm thinking about just now on what we're talking about, like what you're actually naturally good at and your passions and love. It was called like The Element or something, but it's like when you're in your element.
There's been a lot written about that. The Outliers is a book.
Yes.
Outliers. He talks about the Beatles, and people think, how did the Beatles become so great overnight? It wasn't overnight. They spent 10 years practicing every day. Yeah. They put in their 10,000 hours.
They knew who they were.
Well, they were driven very deeply by their love, and look what they did. So I think we all have that potential.
Heck yeah, Neil. Neil, you're the best, man. Yeah, man. We'll just keep pouring belief into each other. I hope it touches people in our audience, man. I know this is good stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to get carried away talking all day here because usually when I'm in a satsang class, I'm with like 5 or 6 people, and it's like, we all get a chance to chime in a little bit. So like the thing goes around, but having this one-on-one, especially knowing that this is being recorded, it's a little awkward.
Yeah, it's okay. We need it, dude. you're the driver. We need driver, this satsang today. And man, so good.
Yeah. So, life can be challenging, but that's all good. We need the challenge. We want the challenge. Without the challenge, we wouldn't grow much.
Totally. It's happening for us. Yeah. Right?
For our growth. It's for our benefit. It's not to us. We have to allow it to come through us. And
through us.
Let it come through you and like experiencing everything. Right. It's not to take anything for granted. And
yeah, man. And actually going through it and processing it and feeling it. My homie one time was like, I was like going through something really hard. He was like, yeah. Like, and I finished and he was like, yeah. Like, feel that. Feel it.
Yeah,
and it was powerful.
It takes time to like quiet down and be still and just feel whatever it is. Because I think as men in our culture, we were taught not to feel from day one. Oh, don't cry, don't be a baby.
Totally, man.
Shut down your emotions. And, men in general have a real trouble expressing their feelings. And it's kind of been a common problem in relationships, and so forth. So,
yeah, man.
I mean,
cycles, man.
Yeah, and not to say that women are perfect either. We all have our issues, right?
Yeah.
we bring different things to the table, hopefully to help each other.
For sure.
You need a spine to get stuff done too. You can't just like let things happen. You got to go out there and take charge and be the hero of your own journey.
You're right, man. Yeah, you're talking about the yin and yang a little bit. It's
absolutely left and right brain, yin yang. Yeah,
it's both. They're both necessary to help to uplift each other.
Well, we're raised to really be very left brain, which is like right-handed people are very left brain, which is more analytical and getting problem solving.
Is that why there's more right-handed people?
I don't know about that.
Okay,
but
I don't know.
I don't know how, but there's been some research on that where people who are lefty have more like right brain dominance, so they have more of an artistic flair.
Interesting.
But the real goal is to have both, is to integrate left and right. And there's all kinds of technologies out there, like Neuralink methods and transcranial electric stim, but meditation, of course. All of that, it's all about really opening up the entire brain, not just the right or the left, but having the whole thing come up and integrating all of it. So shadow work's the same way. Shadow work brings a lot of stuff out of the midbrain where it's stored. And so it's stored where a lot of fear is also stored. So the reason why people have trouble bringing up their traumas is a lot of fear connected to that. So the fear prevents them from bringing the trauma up to talk about. And now, and different medicinal approaches to kind of calming the fear down and allowing the trauma to come up, and especially with people who are in war situations. But any violent trauma, and a lot of us, the car accidents, violent experiences, and a fight, so whatever it is, abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. I mean, there's a lot of that. But I also believe that we somehow chose that, because it's giving us this contrast to look at. Okay, I went through this, but what's it all mean? What can I learn from this? How can I forgive that and let it go, kind of thing. So nothing's really lost. It's all there for a reason.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all perfect.
It's all perfect.
It is.
Wow, yeah. This is beautiful.
There's really some divine perfection in the chaos, in the chaotic randomness of our life, but most people can't. It's hard to get a grasp, because unless you kind of transcend the lower bodies, which exist in the worlds of time and space. So the physical, astral, mental, etheric body, the subconscious, the mind, all exist in the worlds of time and space. So by going to the soul level of consciousness, the self-actualization idea is that we're transcending that and truly seeing and experiencing this inner light, the enlightenment, and the inner sound, the voice, the inner direction, the current of life itself. And when you hear it, you really feel it in a way that transcends any kind of language. And
it's really about loving ourselves, man. At the end of the day, like it's all perfect, man.
Yeah, love, that word love comes up a lot. Yeah, love.
Loving ourselves, man.
Love, yeah. It's just having a lot of goodwill towards yourself, goodwill to all people.
And respect.
And, seeing the eye of soul in everybody we meet, right? And by doing that, you're uplifting yourself and everybody, like we're lifting everybody.
And the other person and yourself.
Well, a lot of great masters have taught that for ages, Love thy neighbor as thyself, right? We've heard that before. So,
Neil, if there's one takeaway, that's amazing. That's it. Look at and treat everybody as soul. Wow.
That's good.
Neil, man, vibrating high right now. What else do we got for our audience? Is there anything else we should share?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Just went through a lot. How much time to go by?
It's about it. It's about time.
Really? It went so fast.
I know, Neil. That's what I'm saying. Teleportation.
Well, satsangs are like that. Yeah. This holy connection with people which we call satsang. It could be just you could have satsang by yourself, and just kind of when you're contemplating, you're really connecting with your own living shariat, your own living truth. And so what does that all mean? How do you become the way? How do you be the way? Be love. Or what they'll say is be the you. Don't just chant it, become it. Become the breath of life. Yeah, if the you is the breath of life itself, we want to become that.
Become the you.
Become it.
And I'm working on a song right now called Become the Way. Yeah.
There you go, man. Serendipitous.
It really is.
There's the waking dream for you.
Yeah. The waking dream, man.
Right. There's no accidents. Nothing's lost.
Nothing's lost.
Yeah, they also call that, Paul Twitchell wrote a book called The Ekvidya. It's the Ekvidya, the ancient science of prophecy. And so as you unfold spiritually, a lot of our psychic channels, like clairvoyance and clairaudience, and all these things, they open up. This is the more of the maturity of our psyche, not just emotional maturity, but more of a deep psychic maturity. And as you contemplate and meditate year after year, eventually all these psychic channels, they open. And not to be used to do anything, to just open. It's just there. But it's just there to help you become aware. Just like body language, for example, is 80% of people's communications through body language, their facial expression, the way they hold themselves, everything. And so we're learning to read people and to become more discriminating based on how just by observing others, and we're becoming more sensitive. They also describe a psychic as a sensitive. So you're becoming very sensitive to people and everything else about them. And so, some people will take that and use it to make money, like a tarot card reader or divination, I Ching.
That's
or whatever.
the dark arts.
Well, then they're using it to have power over others. It's very dangerous. And back in the day, they called it black magic. So to use it to have power, to make money or have power over others. And so that's the real fine line of walking the middle, the razor's edge,
right,
is not to use that to have power over others. It's really to have love for all of your fellow creatures and the love of all life, all creatures. Animals are soul too. And so that's a big part of it that we all have to learn.
Yeah.
The respect for all life.
It's different. It's to use. It's interesting. It's not to be used. You said those powers. Essentially, it's just to be. It's available. It's just there. That's so interesting.
Well, when it's used for ill will, it becomes the downfall of every civilization. It has already.
Wow, that's right.
That it's used to have power over others. Eventually, that will implode, and it will.
It's foolish.
It goes back to the sender.
Wow.
And Milarepa is a great example. Milarepa, back in ancient Tibet, a long time ago. 1500s, 1600s maybe, and he was in the black arts, like the dark arts, manipulating people. But then he eventually learned to escape that through his own. Marpa became his master and guru, and the story is he had to rebuild this house of stone over and over again until he learned to do it with love. And once he learned to do it with love, he had finally met the test of his time, So
to do it with love.
Every rock, every stone. And the master would come to the house and tear it down every day. He'd build it, tear it down, until he can tell that he was doing it with pure love. And then he says, "You're ready." Then he was ready. But it took a long time for this guy to go through the test and trials and tribulations of his own life to figure out what it meant. And so we're all going through that in some shape, some way. And, building our own houses, our own families, and tearing it down, sabotaging it, starting over, building a career, sabotaging it, starting over again.
Until we build it with love.
Right.
Neil, so beautiful. Yeah. Oh my goodness. That was it, man. Yes.
And that's the duality of the universe. It's all about power versus love. This is the yin and yang of the worlds of time and space. So we live in worlds of duality. So we're in it. We're deeply immersed in it. So these are all the mind traps around us that we have to kind of eventually learn to see through. But the only way you'll see through it is if you take enough time to be still. If you never take enough time to be quiet, you'll be stuck in the illusion of your outer personality, and you'll just come back again and again and again, which is okay. There's no judgment. I mean, you'll take as long as you want. It doesn't matter. Nobody is really, this unconditional love and acceptance of all life, it's really up to you where you are in your journey. Where in a desert of your own psyche are you? It's like you have to make your own way. I mean, the masters and the teachers and prophets of the past are all just pointing the way. They can lead a horse to water, but they can't force him to drink. So if you want to drink from the cup of life, you have to take the time to be quiet.
Wow. Yeah, man. Where are we in the desert of our psyche? Neil, it's powerful. Let's get it. Let's be the way. You're the best.
Be love, man.
Be love.
Just be love.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Neil. You're the best.
Thanks, man. That was awesome.
Heck yeah.
Now we do the after takes.
Yeah.